First this week, political debate around the Safe Schools program has highlighted challenges for young people who have questions about their gender identity. The focus has turned one South Australian transgender woman into an advocate for others who are struggling to overcome the same hurdles she faced. Our reporter Alina Ecott sat down with Sam Matthews in Adelaide.
I was really faced with that decision of, do I continue to live my life as a miserable, sad person, or do I live my life to the fullest and take the other half of my soul along for the ride?
3 years ago, Sam Matthews made a life-changing decision.
It started very early in my life, but I just didn't have a word to describe it. I knew or suspected that there was something a little bit different about me, but as a child, I think the differences in gender aren't as great. So, I was a kid.
But by her early 20s, her gender was all Sam could think about.
It had taken over my life, and it was in the forefront of my mind all the time, that it was driving me a little bit crazy, the fact that I so wanted to be something that I wasn't, and it was a secret that I had to eventually come out with.
With the support of family and friends, Sam's transition has been relatively smooth. But that's not the case for many transgender people. There are often challenges finding housing, employment and access to medical specialists. In South Australia, there's just one psychiatrist who specialises in transgender services, and there's a waiting list of 6 months.
That can be a really crucial time for a lot of people in terms of how they feel emotionally. So really we need more counsellors and medical practitioners who understand us and understand how to help us.
Someone who's not familiar with that, or with the kind of problems that gender dysphorics present with, shouldn't be doing the work.
Gynaecologist Rosemary Jones specialises in women's and transgender health.
Okay, now I need to give you some notes for the afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Having transitioned herself in 2007 in her late 60s, she understands the needs of her patients. She fears a lack of training in transgender health is perpetuating the small number of doctors working in the area.
We're only just getting to the point of thinking about doing postgraduate training, possibly even issuing certificates. So it's all very early.
Dr Jones says many of the people she helps through their transition are on the verge of breakdown.
Don't forget that of the whole community undergoing transition, 42.5% self-harm or suicide. Nearly half of the people kill themselves or damage themselves because they're so desperate.
Transgender people often face discrimination in the workplace, from government departments and through legislation. It's a problem every state and territory is trying to address.
Because you're gay or transgender or simply female shouldn't be translated into disadvantage in our community.
The South Australian government has been working to remove discriminatory language from state legislation. Premier Jay Weatherill put forward a private member's bill to allow transgender people to change the gender on their birth certificate without having to undergo sex change surgery. But it was voted down while he was overseas.
I think that there was a misunderstanding about some of the intent of some of the clauses. We need to have better discussions. Some people, I think, were taken by surprise when the vote was called on.
The bill was reintroduced with some minor amendments and has since passed. As public awareness and understanding of gender diversity grows, so too does the number of people feeling able to make their transition. Mr Weatherill concedes services and legislation are too often lagging behind.
It's about making a more inclusive society where everybody feels that they belong, but more importantly, that it also removes real harm and real disadvantage, and we saw that with the Bulma-Rizzi case.
David and Marco Bulma-Rizzi were enjoying the trip of a lifetime in January, travelling from the UK to honeymoon in Australia. Tragically, David was killed in a freak accident. His death shone a light on South Australian laws that didn't recognise same-sex marriages. His death certificate initially read, "Never married." It led to the creation of a relationships register to acknowledge overseas unions.
Those interactions should have been respectful. They ended up being abusive from the perspective of the person who'd lost his husband. And so this adjusts lots of things. It allows things to be put in their proper place.
Governments are also grappling with the best way to better educate people about gender diversity, particularly in schools. Sam says she would have loved to have learnt about gender identity at an earlier age.
You can't make people transgender, you can't make people gay, but a general education and awareness of this can only help those children and others around to understand.
I'm tired of giving my love and getting nowhere.
The path to happiness hasn't been easy, but Sam is now using that experience to advocate for others facing the same challenges.
The most challenging part for me has been coming out and telling everybody. And really it's, you know, everything's going to get better from here on out. I really look forward to my 30s where I can, you know, live my life as most completely as myself. Yeah.
Alina Ecott with that story.